Okay, in the second part of today's lesson, I'm just going to talk more about air pressure, how you start to use your knowledge of air pressure to answer exam questions that are linked to this, but more importantly, how knowledge of air pressure helps you understand weather patterns. So we just moved through this work that you were doing last week. This is the final part of last week's lesson, which was looking at the fact that on this weather map that you can see here, you have these key aspects of these weather maps called isobars. Now, isobars are lines of equal air pressure. So if I just take this one here, for example, everywhere along that line would have the same air pressure. So that's the first thing we know. We also know that when these lines are close together, like we can see here, those two lines are quite close together, we know that the winds are quite strong. Whereas when they're quite far apart, like we can see down here, well, then we know that the winds are quite weak. One final thing that we should hopefully remember about air pressure is that when the air pressure is high, winds will travel in a clockwise direction. So that's as if the hour hand of a clock was moving in the normal direction. When the wind's low pressure, we know it's moving in an anti-clockwise direction, as if it was moving in the opposite way that you'd expect a clock hand to move. We also know that winds don't just move in that direction, but they actually follow these isobars. These isobars show us the direction the wind is traveling. So anywhere along those lines would tell us the direction. So that's what we know thus far. Let's just move on a little bit to today's lesson. So in today's lesson, you're going to be asked, just jump back, to do a few little tasks. First of all, I would encourage you to, first of all, get your physical environments textbook out and read page 17 to 19. Okay. Once you've done that, you will then you'll be watching this part here already because that's today's lesson. I'll just reorganize that actually in the main worksheet for you so it makes sense. You're then going to have to read this key idea, okay, that's on page 19 of the PDF. Now, if you're in your virtual jotter, it's the page that looks a little bit like this. And as you read through this, I'd like you to highlight, using your highlighter tool in Google Docs, the key ideas here. This page is full of important key ideas. So for example, here we can see our warm air mass meeting our cold air mass. We can see this thing called a weather front forming. In this area, we've got all the warm air, so it's nice and warm. In this area here, we've got the cold air. We can see these isobars that are telling us about the wind direction. And we can see these little symbols, which are actually called weather fronts. And more on weather fronts in a second. Okay. Now, once you've read that, that tees you up for trying the task. But before you do the task, you're going to want to watch a couple of videos. Okay. First of all, you're going to want to watch this video here. Now, you might want to do that right now. Watch this and then pause. Okay. Right. Now, you may have just watched this video here. If you haven't, and you're wanting to watch my whole lesson and then go back and do it in order you see on the worksheet, you're going to want to watch this lesson here. Now, this is a lesson this is a tutorial that's actually going to help you answer this exam question right here. Okay, it's me talking you through how to approach answering this, and it's going to introduce you to the ideas of what we already know about wind speed and wind direction. How do we know those two features? Well, we need to know a little bit about these isobars, but it's also going to tell you a little bit about how working out the temperature, and that's to do with the warm and the cold sectors. So watch that tutorial, okay? Then answer the question, and then go back to the worksheet, and you're going to move on to your next key idea, which is the formation of warm and cold fronts. Now, once you have read this section of your virtual jotter, which is right here, 2 pages, you're going to have to read your way through, take your time, highlight again if you wish. You've now got 2 exam questions to answer. And the step 1 asks you, I'll give you strong guidance on this one. And then you've got a step 2, which I've got more guidance. And I've got the guidance, if we go back to the main worksheet, I've got a couple of YouTube links here and here, which are tutorials where I'm talking you through how to approach those 2 questions. Now, all 3 questions are going to be marked as if they were exam-based questions. The first one doesn't actually have marks attached to it, but you'll see these step 1 and step 2 questions, they do, and therefore pay attention to what the tutorials guide you and how to explain and how to describe and so on and so forth. When you've finished all of that, you might want to try this optional question. I would encourage you to if you've got some time in the week. I think practicing these questions are really important, and if you look at your physical environments textbook, which I've got right here, you will see the question right there and it's a weather map question, which you need to use a map to answer the questions. And that's on page 20. And if you do it, pop it in a separate Google Doc, either send it to us by sharing it or attach it to your virtual note set when you submit your work this week. And we will also mark it and give some marks if you choose to do that. It is optional, however. So hopefully I'll get to see you all at this week's Google Meet, where I'll do some more teaching around today's key points. If you're not there, then I will always post the video for my Google Meets, or you can just rely on this worksheet here and this tutorial where all the other tutorials I've prepared for you.